Hello. Recently got back from a conference down in Columbia for auxiliary board members, and there were lots of people there. Universal House of Justice members showed up, some international counselors were there as well, and lots of different topics were discussed. Primarily accompaniment, but another one that was discussed was the idea of study circles, the practice, and how it fits into cluster development. And so I was hoping to talk about that a little bit today, because I wanted to write it down, but I thought writing it down really isn't going to convey as much as was said there, and maybe by doing a video it would help out a little bit more. So let's get started. The basic idea is that in Belize we've been considering for a long time, is it really important to do the practice in a study circle? And how does doing the practice really fit into this whole institute and cluster process we've been working on for the last several years? And in many cases, people have looked at the practice and said, well, sometimes I'll do it, sometimes I won't. But really, after looking at what was discussed down in Columbia, it seems like doing the practice is essential to fulfilling the purpose of the study circle, but also making sure that we develop the cluster in a way that will allow it to continue to grow into the future. One of the first things to look at is really what is the purpose of a study circle. And the primary thing to realize is that a study circle is there for the purpose of helping people develop skills to do a particular service. It's not there to teach people about the faith. It's not there to convert people to become Baha'is or whatever the deal happens to be. The purpose of a study circle is to give people skills and the confidence and experience necessary to do some form of service. Primarily children's classes, junior youth groups, continuing to do some study circles, and maybe home visits and other things along those lines. So with that in mind, the thing is to look at what is the structure of a study circle like, and how does the practice fit into that, and is it really important to do to achieve the purpose of the study circle and really future cluster development. First thing to look at is, okay, let's look at the structure of a study circle. One thing you always have is you have a tutor, but then you have participants, and in this particular example we have 4 participants right here. And so when we talk about achieving the goal of a study circle and helping people develop skills, one of the things that's always been encouraged is that we get these individuals that are participating in the study circle to do some form of practice. So for example, in book 3, you want to do the practice of doing a children's class. So in this particular case, one way that a tutor might handle this is to split the participants up into teams. So you have one team over here and another team over here, and then you have those teams go out and to do some type of children's class in the Baha'i community or in the larger community with people or children who are Baha'is and non-Baha'is. The basic idea is that when these teams would go out and do their children's class, the thing that's supposed to happen at that point is the tutor is supposed to accompany them in this whole process and go through the whole thing with them. From the very point of putting together the actual, like say, children's class, to finding the children, to actually having the class, snacks, whatever else you want to do. The tutor is supposed to go through the whole process with them. And so while the study circle is going on, it would be nice to have this happen, the practice happen at least 3, 4, 5 times, so that by the time people are done, they're very confident and assured that they could do it themselves. One of the things that also is nice about doing it in the team is that eventually there's certain people that might come out as ones who are very confident, and also willing to lead teams of people to do these type of things. So for example, in one of these teams, maybe one of the people is particularly good at doing these children's classes, likes putting together the lessons, likes basically directing the class and maybe having an assistant. That person can be looked at as someone we might look at in the future as being a leader in other areas in terms of cluster development and in terms of doing service. But the basic idea is, if you have these particular teams, they're doing the service maybe in the Baha'i community first to gain some confidence and to feel a little bit more comfortable, but then maybe going out into the larger community and doing those services there. The primary thing is, if people aren't doing the practice, they won't have an opportunity to actually experience what it's like to do these forms of service. And the reason why this is important is because if we do go forward with the practice, then the tutor who's working with these teams gets to experience accompaniment. They begin to understand what it's like, what do they need to do to instill confidence and skills in someone else, how it is to be patient, all those other type of things that are very important when you accompany someone else. The other thing is they get to enhance their own skills. If they're children's class teachers already and they're doing a book 3, they get to learn and develop those skills even further by helping others to learn those skills as well. In terms of the participants, they get to learn some important things too. First of all, they get to experience what it's like to be accompanied, and they're assured and they feel more confident because there's someone else there that's going through this whole process with them. And as they get to experience this in the future, when they want to accompany someone, they'll have a better idea of exactly how that's done because they went through the whole process themselves. The next thing, of course, is that they'll be able to develop the skill. If you wanted to go swimming, you took a class in swimming, you'd expect you'd get into the water often so you could actually do what it is that you're supposed to be learning. And the same is true here. Again, if we're doing a children's class or someone's learning how to do junior youth groups, the idea is to do the actual practice so people get to develop the skills, not only in theory, but in actual application, so that they can get the experience, the confidence that they need to be able to do this on their own in the future. The other thing is it gives opportunity, if there is an opportunity to split people up into teams, it gives people an opportunity to work with others and get a sense of what it is like to work in the team. Oftentimes when we do things in a cluster, it's not only we're doing it ourselves, we're going to be working with other people. This provides a good opportunity to get a sense of how that's done. But everybody actually benefits from this process. One of the things that everybody benefits from is a better understanding of how these different service avenues and processes work. So for example, if we were doing, let's say, a book 6 where we were talking about teaching, one of the important things to understand is how do you keep a journal of who you visited and what happened in those particular situations. What type of teaching materials do you need? Who do you need to talk to get those teaching materials? How much do those teaching materials cost? How do you schedule a meeting with people beforehand? Are there things you're supposed to do even before you go out and meet with someone, like pray or something along those lines that should be done? If we're doing the practice, then people get to see exactly how that process works in actual application, and therefore they'll get a better understanding of how to do it if they need to do it in the future. The other thing is that you get to develop enduring relationships and fellowship. One of the things that the Universal House of Justice is telling us is it's important that as this process moves forward, that the community becomes more united, there's more love, there's stronger relationships. One of the important ways that a study circle can contribute to this is as we do the practices, people will begin to come together, they'll begin to enjoy the service, and begin to develop relationships that are hopefully enduring and go beyond just the study circle and into future service. So that's the idea behind the practice. By doing the practice, we get to achieve the purpose of the study circle, which is the development of skills and the increased likelihood that people will actually do these services when they're done. But beyond this, you can use the same process we're talking about here with the main person with accompaniment for the other service avenues as well. You can imagine this could be an animator, and there could be some junior youth right here too. And the junior youth could be working together for several years, and then you might notice one or two of the junior youth that are really good leaders in the group. And then you might eventually take them away and work with them individually, and eventually have them start their own junior youth groups or children's classes or something like that in the future. The same process that we're talking about here in terms of doing the practice and eventually accompanying people in that practice could be used with children's classes, junior youth groups, or whatever. But one of the important things to understand about all of this, and one of the major issues we've been trying to figure out lately, is how is it that we can find people with the skills and experience necessary to go on and help the clusters develop by developing structures such as the cluster agencies. The auxiliary board members need assistants that can go out there and accompany people while the cluster is developing. We also need to find cluster institute coordinators who can help with this whole process. And we need to be able to find people who can be on the area teaching committee that can help go out there and help the community have collective efforts in terms of reaching out to people and telling them about the faith. How do we train these people? How do we find the people to fill these positions? We do that by finding the people who have worked well in the study circle process and who have worked well when doing the practices. If you have a tutor who's